Alright, what I got this week? Itch.io bans the need to collective shout censorship. Ubisoft CEO speaks out about the state of the company and future plans. Stop Killing Games faces targeted sabotage. All that and more on this week's Old Man Rages at the News. We're starting off with some sad news. The Elder Scrolls creator, Julian Lefray, has died following a tragic battle with cancer. The studio behind Wayward Realms, the last game he worked on, and Bethesda released statements about it. If you wanna go read them yourself, go ahead, but I won't quote one of the replies in the Reddit thread that goes over all this, as it clearly shows how influential Julian was. As we commend your soul to Aetherius, blessing of the 8 divines upon you. For you are the salt and earth of Nirn, our beloved children, and beloved by Arcade. May you find peace in your afterlife, and may your body find rest while it remains in Tamriel. Let no profane desecration fall upon thy remains, and may Arcade protect your body and welcome your soul in his halls, until Tamriel is no more. What a beautiful message from someone who clearly was touched by the world he created. May rest in peace, you absolute legend. In other news, Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers, hits Steam, and Polygon are unable to admit they don't like Souls games. This precious human being, if I can even call him that, literally wrote, and I quote,
"Ah, damn it! It's another Souls-like? Seriously?"
And then followed up with,
"I haven't played Wu Chang Fallen Feathers yet."
Literally next sentence. This is exactly why I mock Polygon and Kotaku, cause these companies can't spend 2 to 3 hours on a game to give it an honest review and complain that there are too many Souls-like games. It's fine if you don't like Souls-like games and are disappointed that big releases are Souls-like. However, this man is hired. He is being paid to do this. There is no other job on the planet where you can complain about your job and get away with it by half-assing it. Like, look at this. I haven't played any of the games he mentioned, but complains that Lies of P caught his attention and compared it to another action game, Steel Rising, saying,
"Parry this, dodge that, get ass kicked by boss a few times."
Like, dude, what the fucker, you literally couldn't get your bias out of the way for 20 minutes? A freaking language malware writes better articles than you. This thing even doubled down and dumbed down Stellar Blade and Nier Automata's gameplay to just
"Parry this, dodge that,"
and admitted he didn't even play Black Myth Wukong. Well, at least he admits he sucks at games, unlike some other journalists that claim to be gamers. He even complains that he wants to learn about these worlds without having to pass a skill check. And to this I say, just fucking go around the internet, learn how to freaking use Google, and you'll learn about the world if that is truly what you want. Let's not even get into the fact that in some Souls-like games you can make yourself so overpowered you can click once and instantly kill a boss, but hey, you know, this isn't the only journal with a stupid take. However, the guy who reviewed Wu Chang gave it a 9.7 out of 10, however, added the con of
"Gunner approved"
into the pros too. Like, what is he doing? He only mentioned the Gunner part once in the whole review and added it into the cons after. At least he didn't complain about it being a Souls-like game. Yes, you heard me right. He didn't complain that it was a Souls-like game, and he added Gunner approved as both a pro and a con. These people are freaking delusional, man. I mean, they would have been taken seriously if the only con was the technical issues they got, and it could have been such a great start of a redeeming arc, but holy fuck, we picked the wrong timeline here. Like, look at their Twitter post about this. They got ratioed multiple times and have the boss lock replies. Even in the tweet made by Casey Payne, you can see originally the only con was Gunner approved, so they added an actual legit con. Even see that there are hidden replies as well, and another ratio. And yes, I am aware of the mostly negative reviews. I am aware it's a buggy mess at the moment. But at the end of the day, this is Unreal 5. At this point, I would be surprised if it came out without any bugs, considering Unreal 5 is an unoptimized mess. I mean, Unreal Engine in general is notorious for being unoptimized. Prime example would be Cyberpunk here. It still managed to reach good numbers, 1 million on Steam at launch and 274,000 with the 2.0 update that fixed the majority of the technical issues. But it still puts it in a much better position compared to DI the Failguard, especially just looking at the launch itself and comparing it to the 2.0 update, because I'm not about to kick a horse when it's down much. Thankfully, the developers are actively working on optimizing the game. As you can see, 3 days ago they released a patch that hopefully optimized the game. I personally haven't tried it, and my recommendation would be to look around for more information before you buy it. Moving on, itch.io is spinning the neat collective shout stupid campaign. The cherry on top, they made a corporate pilled response about maintaining good relations with payment processors and basically removed all of the not safe for work games from their search engine. There is also a community note mentioning that itch.io has actually deleted the games from people's libraries, and another user confirmed that there are actually people saying that's the case. There is also a change.org petition to remove this censorship. I hope it actually does something, but I wouldn't hold my breath really. Anyways, what this petition asks is for 1. Stop censoring legal fictional content that complies with the law and platform standards. 2. Reject influence from activist groups that promote moral panic or misinterpret fiction as harm. 3. Be fully transparent about content restrictions and their rationale behind them. 4. Protect creators' rights to make adult content and ensure a fair appeals process for any penalized media. There's also another one specifically targeting MasterCard, which basically says prostitution is work too and it shouldn't be censored. Both of these petitions will be in the sources. If you want, go have a look at them, sign them, it's your call. Side note, Creative Shout is also the company that defended Cuties. Yes, that dumpster fire of a movie, if you can even call it that. I can call it a couple of things. Primarily how should I say it? A PDF file bait. I have more, but YouTube's not gonna like what I say next. Anyways, their co-founder publicly posted a statement about Cuties, basically defending it because it's a powerful protest. Not only that, but she tried to falsify an email that she quote-unquote received. Like, bold of her to assume someone would want to do it with her. The community notes even said how it was done. If the credit card companies just looked as much as we do, they would have realized that she's nothing but a walking, talking joke. And in some good news, Japan's politician Kishida noticed this movement as well, and things aren't looking pretty, considering he has anti-censorship in his Twitter name. Madam Savvy pointed it out on Twitter, and she got the attention of the politician. He quote tweeted saying, "Thank you for sharing the information about Collective Shout. I believe that these escalating movements to restrict expression have the potential to shrink and destroy the global content industry. The reality of these movements is still largely unknown in Japan, so I would like to inform the Japanese public and also divert it to the diet. I would be extremely grateful if you could provide me with any information. I would also be grateful if you could provide any information from the content industry or from overseas people who are trying to protect freedom of expression who are reading this." And by the looks of things, he will be getting a lot of information in his DMs. He also made a standalone tweet saying that he received messages from all over the world from people who love anime, manga, content culture, and freedom of expression, mentioning how he also worked on these issues in Japan since 2010, and he hopes that And I quote, "We can join forces across borders to fight alongside censorship of expression." Alright, Captain, I'm all on board with this. And I wish more politicians think like him. I would have liked to show you more from collective chromosome deficiency. However, they don't have a spine and put their Twitter account in protected mode. They did go unprotected to post a message about quote-unquote digital abuse from
Female gamer and survivor.
I very much doubt that someone reached out to them with their current reputation and Madam Savvy managed to get a screenshot of it, but they went back to protected mode. Elon really should remove the feature so people have to face the consequences of their actions. I mean, he removed likes, so, it's doable. Now, let's jump back to Japan and the payment processors. Japan's FTC acts on Visa over suspended fee abuse to sway credit card firms. The Fair Trades Commission has obliged the Visa Group to comply to adhere to its collective action plan over suspicions that it effectively forced credit card companies to use the group's credit authorization system. Visa submitted its voluntary plan following the FTC's investigation in accordance with the commitment process based on the anti-monopoly law, Commission officials announced on the 22nd of July. Now, am I covering this, you ask? Well, it's quite simple, the previous story. So let's cover the fallout and the consequences mainly of what's happening. It was the first FTC's administrative action against the credit card industry and hopefully not the last, as it needs it. The Commission approved the company's plan. Visa Worldwide will be required to report to the FTC on how the plan is implemented for 5 years. If you ask me, they need to do quarterly reports for 40 years, not just 5, to make sure the plan becomes the standard operation process, but hey, not just me. The FTC also conducted an on-site investigation on Visa's Japanese subsidiary last July on suspicions that the updated terms that happened in November 2021, mind you, restricted free transaction of credit card companies and excluded companies that provide a rival credit card authorization system. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. The moment you have a duopoly, anybody else does not have any chance in the industry. Now, lastly, if you're in the US, I'd strongly advise you to contact your representatives and urge them to support the Fair Access to Banking Act, as this will restrict when payment processors can deny the use of electronic funds, aka online payment. Link to the bill will be in the description. And now for a big L from Japan. A Japanese political party wants video games and anime to be put under the state authority to make sure they're quote-unquote wholesome and people are angry. And that's how you kill creative freedom, ladies and gents. So, Japan sees the entertainment industry as a core industry that generates revenue comparable to the country's exports. Good. Now, Sansedo, the guy who brought this whole thing up, intends to support the industry's expansion through several measures, and normally that's a good thing. However, one of the distinct points in Sansedo's strategy stirred up a hornet's nest. The proposed measure is, quote, delegating authority to the Agency for Cultural Affairs to ensure the whole development of manga, anime, and games as a culture rather than judging their value based on economic rationale, end quote. And you can see 3 tweets that the article links, basically criticizing the proposed measure and making my life easier, as I don't have to say it out loud. They did. I really hope that doesn't happen, because otherwise we lose Jobless Reincarnation, Lord of Mysteries, and possibly the ones that will cause the most uproar, like Chainsaw Man, Soul Leveling, who knows, One Punch Man might be on the table, Dragon Ball, you never know. At the end of the day, it's fine to want more wholesome stuff, and if they want more wholesome stuff in the media, they can start their own projects, fund them, I don't know. But this again is a problem of not being clear enough, and from the wording itself, it comes off as them trying to have direct control over the entertainment, which is and should be a no-go in everyone's books. I mean, the moment a country has control over media, George Orwell said it best. We're looking at censorship. Moving on, Nada Holdings and Dragami Games launch a new IP development for Lollipop Chainsaw. Finally, some good fucking news! Nada Holding entered a partnership agreement with Dragami Games to bring multiple new projects based on the game Lollipop Chainsaw. They also announced it over on their Twitter account, and it said it's coming back with a brand new game and an anime. They also added that there's also an official X account for the project. In the announcement on Nada Holdings' official website, they said this: the development process will prioritize staying true to the destructive tone and spirit of the original work without imposing excessive creative restrictions in the name of DEI. And yes, they did actually write DEI. Man, this whole thing's gonna be crazy. I mean, the Lollipop Chainsaw game was hated by Karens and feminists, so the inner Eric Cartman in me rises with expectation and anticipation. I get it. In other news, Outer Worlds 2's price is going down to $70 after Microsoft admits that the price is too damn high. If you also pre-order the game at the old price point, you can grab a refund for it. Oh boy, almost as if companies shot themselves in the foot with $80 games. Nah, that couldn't be. It most likely that vocal minority that caused backlash for the price. Yeah, about that. This day and age, $80 for a game, unless you're pulling clear obscure, it ain't worth $80. Maybe Elden Ring, but the rest, I don't think so. And now for a train wreck. Every time we talk about this company, it's always about its failures, and it's not shocking. But what's also not shocking is the gamer trying to defend it by calling the question made by shareholders, quote-unquote, bizarre. Strap in, folks, because this is gonna be a bumpy road, and the driver is everyone's favorite, Ubisoft. There was a recording of the meeting where a specific question was asked. However, I ain't about to give my details to Tencent just like that. There's also a 52-second clip from a Kotaku, and I use the word loosely, a reporter. If you want to take a look at it, go right ahead, but it also got cut off before the shareholder finished asking her question, and without the response to boot. Now, what's the question, you might ask? The shareholder asked about the controversy around Assassin's Creed Shadows. She also mentioned that Ubisoft was accused and criticized about using the woke trend, pointing out that it was happening also in the 16th century Japan, using an African samurai as a main character with the ability to fall in love with a transgender character, finishing off the clip by asking, woke or no woke? According to the gamer, Gilmore responded with,
when you get to play the game, you understand that the game is full of characters and the characters actually blend in with the game. In regards to this particular game, what was our goal? We wanted to showcase characters with heroic journey.
And he managed to fail that in the most miserable way possible while completely dodging the question. The next response is a complete delusion fest, so I'm not even gonna bother reading it.
But don't worry, everything's fine. Monetization will make player experience more fun. And if you have played a Ubisoft game, you will disagree that the statement is controversial.
Yeah, sure, mate. And what are you gonna charge us for next? Reloading? Saving? Save slots? In a full price game? Oh yes, the future is so great for Ubisoft. Yes, according to Guillemont, microtransactions, quote,
make the player experience more fun.
Because players can, quote,
prioritize their avatar or progress more quickly.
Even though he's stressed that they are
always optional.
The delusion doesn't end there though. The CEO responded to the Stop Killing Games petition stating that the publisher is, quote, working on it, improving its approach to end-of-life support, but that nothing is eternal. And just from the title alone, I can tell you that I can buy the old Command & Conquer games and play them on modern hardware, disproving the title entirely. He was asked if he supported the petition and whether players own a Ubisoft game when they buy it, and how Ubisoft plans to ensure the games remain playable after support is discontinued. He tried to dodge the question by saying,
Regarding the petition, we operate in the market, and whenever we release a game, we provide a lot of support for that game. We also provide a lot of services that make sure the game is accessible and remains playable 24/7.
and tried to use the crew to how it was on sale for €1 prior to the original game's shutdown. Even the article written by PC Gamer of all people is asking if the comparison is justified since those two are separate games. I know, a good point from a games journalist. How rare. Gilmore also pointed out that all video games publishers are faced with the issue of changing or ending services. And I quote,
You provide a service, but nothing is written in stone, and at some point the service may be discontinued. Nothing is eternal. We're doing our best to make sure that things go well for all players and buyers, because obviously support for a game cannot last forever.
Alright, here's the thing. I'm not a developer, I haven't worked for Blizzard, nor hacked power plants for the government. However, there's one thing I know. Stop Killing Games is targeting single-player games, and asking for them to remain playable after support ends. To me, it doesn't seem that hard to do so, considering Windows has backwards compatibility support built into its operating system to start with. Also, the nothing is eternal statement is kind of bullshit. Like, look at the lore of the Nokia company. It started in, 1865, and it's still around to this very day? Yeah, nothing's eternal my ass. But anyway, I digress. There's also one more statement I will put on screen if you want to read it, but it just boils down to,
I can't be asked to do something small in order to gain public support.
the delusions don't stop there, however. The CEO thinks Star Wars Outlaws failed because the brand was less popular. Yeah, sure, the brand's the issue. Not that it was a subpar game that any of the Star Wars Jedi Knight series of games puts it to shame. And the last of these games was released in 2003. He cited the brand before talking about the game's technical performance, and I quote,
For Star Wars Outlaws, we didn't reach our sales targets. The game suffered from a number of items. First, it suffered from the fact that it was released at the time when the brand that it belonged was in a bit of choppy waters, and the game had a few items that still needed to be polished. And they were polished and debugged in the early weeks, but it did affect sales volumes.
Just pure deflection. I don't think I need to go into what's wrong with that statement. Polish. Yeah. There's not enough polish on this planet to get that third to shine. And he further continued with,
We did heavily improve the game by troubleshooting and debugging, and it will be released on upcoming consoles such as Switch 2. It will be the new version of the game.
I sincerely hope for the two Star Wars Outlaw fans that are out there that the game improves. Cause looking at the Steam DB numbers, it ain't looking too hot. And also, Ubisoft claims that players are very sensitive to quality of games nowadays. They always have been, you dumbass. We want good shit, not the mediocre at best, slop at worst stuff that you feed us. Guillemot lays out what he sees as high risk factor, stemming from a quote, highly competitive environment where players are sensitive to the quality and content of games. The success of video games depends as much on efficiency of its development process as on its launch. And here I am, I'm gonna say it. It doesn't depend on any of that. It depends on how much players actually enjoy the game you're trying to sell them. Look at Stellar Blade. That game managed to sell 3 million copies when it hit Steam. Mind you, it also has the nouveau and a lot of people hate that shit, but the game's enjoyable. So, while you guys sit behind player counts claiming it's a big win, the actual winners say sales numbers. These dumbasses also believe monetization makes the game also more enjoyable, sure. You know what? How about you put in your credit or debit card in every time you freaking reload? I don't know, a bullet costs you 50 cents. Oh no, that's too low. We need to make sure it's valued accordingly. $1.50. These people are delusional, and just writing this makes me... Well, after I'm done with this, I'm gonna need to get something for my headache. Cause this thing's flaring up. Thank you, Guillemot. To finish this off before I lose my marbles, he gave a list of specific and material risks that apparently Ubisoft is exposed to and categorized them. And I quote, failure in development and launch of a game, toxicity in gamers, and survive and bashing. And some of those are in the list with a moderate or high risk factor, claiming that online bashing is one of those rated as, quote, high business risk. Well, maybe if you got your head out of your ass and actually read what's been written, you'll understand that people are criticizing you. I'm giving up. Ubisoft is down in the dumps. Just dissolve the company already. And now, for something that screams desperation. The Stop Killing Games campaign claims EU initiative targeted by anonymous transparency complaint amidst surge of support. Yeah, when I originally saw Ross's video on this, I was hell suspicious because this is the last week of the campaign, at least for the signatures bit. And now it's being targeted not when it was originally made, but it kind of makes sense and you'll see why in a bit. So, to kick this off, Ross posted a video on the 21st of July titled "The Industry Filed False Claims Against the Stop Killing Games Initiative," in which he goes over the false claims laid against him from the anonymous source. Now, some people speculate it's pirate software, somebody who then nearly derailed the initiative. Others think that it might be the lobby group that's against this that did it. We don't know. And honestly, you'll see why in a bit. It doesn't really matter. If you want more detailed explanation, however, his video will be linked in the sources. But the claim alleges two main violations. 1. A false declaration of, quote, no funding on the initiative's EU listing, and 2. Systematic concealment of major contributions. The document claims Scott's voluntary hours described him by having a full-time dedication, exceed, quote, any reasonable volunteer threshold, and constitute an in-kind contribution value between 63,000 to 147,000 euros based on numbers pulled out of their asses. Yeah, they literally made numbers up for this. We're off to a great start, aren't we? Scott also emphasized that he holds no actual authority over the EU initiative, which has distinct organizers, and that he has not been listed among them. He also mentioned that the organizers of the initiative consulted EU representatives in spring 2024 and were assured his assistance complied with regulations. On top of that, there are multiple representatives in the EU Parliament that are supporting the bill. I wonder why someone is trying to derail the initiative. Can't really put my finger on it. Almost as if there is actual support for this, and it might get pushed through, but then again, what do I know? I'm just a European citizen. I also believe Scott when he said he was just a political target, because why else would it be filed after Video Games Europe filed their half-truth, half-bullshit statements? But again, if you want more details, check his video out and sign the petition if you haven't. I know it reached the 1.4 million mark, but the more signatures we have, the more valid the point comes off across as. The deadline is the 31st of July. If you have the chance to sign it and haven't, you'll be making history. Moving on, hackers managing to publish an info stealer into an early access Steam game called Chemia, if I'm even pronouncing that right. The hacker is called Larva208 and injected the info stealer in the files of Chemia that are hosted on Steam. The initial compromise occurred on the 22nd of July when the hijackloader malware cvkrutnp.exe, which established a presence on the victim's drive and downloaded the Vidar info stealer. v9d9d.exe. There is an infographic of how it works by ProDarf if you want to look at it to get a better idea of how this whole operation works, because I sure as hell can't explain it in a way that would do it justice. Have a look at that. I strongly encourage you to do so. Thankfully, Steam has removed the game due to the malware it has, and anyone who has ran the game received an email about the malware, which is a good time to remind you to double check your emails from Steam, just in case something like this happened. It's also unclear how the malicious files were added to the game's project, and the article suspects that it was an insider helping out the hackers, but I haven't found a statement from the developers nor the social media page, so take it with a grain of salt. On the bright side, Gmod got an update. The content from Counter-Strike Source and Half-Life 2 were added to Gary's mod by default, obviously with Valve's permission. The voices and maps aren't included in this, but it should eliminate most of the missing textures and errors. You can also see a lot of people are happy with this, as on the Reddit post it has 5.6k of votes. And lastly, and something that shouldn't come as a shock to anyone really, Fable is getting delayed again. This news came from the Xbox Insider, Special Nick, who said on the Xbox Air podcast that 2 sources have told him that Fable may not arrive until 2027. You have the article and the podcast in the sources where Fable is mentioned. This to me also screams development hell, because as I mentioned before, Fable was delayed from 2025 to 2026 originally, and now this comes out and a potential delay until 2027. Oh boy, I sure as hell don't envy anyone who works on that game. But anyways, that's the end of this week. Like if you like it, comment if you want to speak out on something or if I got something wrong, and I'll see you next time.